Ever get that, like, sinking feeling? You know, you share something online, think it's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and then bam, turns out it's fake news.
Happens to all of us, right? It's so easy to get caught up in the moment, especially when you see something that really resonates with you, or maybe confirms something you already suspect.
Totally. And that's what makes today's deep dive so fascinating and a little unnerving, honestly.
Mhm.
We're talking about how easily misinformation can take root, particularly surrounding elections, which, let's face it, are kind of a big deal.
Huge.
Right. So you send over this article about Fox News host Maria Bartiromo and some claims of voter fraud in Texas, and it's a doozy. Ready to unpack it.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. What we're going to see here is a textbook example, sadly, of how even the most outlandish claims can gain traction and spread like wildfire in our current media landscape.
Okay, so set the scene for us. What exactly did Bartiromo say?
So picture this. Bartiromo is live on air, and she starts talking about this supposed massive line of immigrants at a Texas DMV, all there to, you guessed it, illegally register to vote.
Okay, hold up. Red flag number one.
Hmm.
Did she mention where she got this information from?
Oh, and just a friend of a friend's wife, totally reliable sources.
Classic. That's about as trustworthy as my uncle who works at Nintendo rumor. But seriously, that's concerning. And what's crazier, the article points out that there isn't even a DMV in the town Bartiromo mentioned.
Exactly. A simple fact check would have shut this whole thing down right there. It just goes to show you the power of even a little bit of scrutiny.
So are you saying people just blindly believe anything they hear?
Not necessarily. It's a bit more complex than that. You see, misinformation often thrives not because people are gullible, but because it often confirms pre-existing beliefs and anxieties.
Confirmation bias, right?
Right.
Like, we're drawn to information that reinforces what we already think,
Yeah.
even if it's not true.
Exactly. So people who are already worried about voter fraud, for example, might be more likely to accept Bartiromo's claim without questioning it, even if the source is questionable.
And that's where this story takes an even wilder turn, right? Because this wasn't just some internet rumor that fizzled out. What happened?
Well, despite being easily debunked, the article mentions that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton actually launched an investigation based on Bartiromo's claims.
Seriously, talk about adding fuel to the fire.
I know, right? It's a perfect example of how even a baseless story can have real-world consequences. Because even if these investigations don't find any actual wrongdoing, the fact that they're happening at all lends legitimacy to the initial claims.
It's like giving it a stamp of approval, even if it's totally unfounded.
Exactly. And the worst part is, that initial spark, that one false claim, can trigger a whole cascade of misinformation. Suddenly, you have other news outlets picking up the story, social media blowing up. It's like trying to put out a wildfire.
So it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle. And the average person just trying to stay informed, they're caught in the crossfire.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be aware of this phenomenon, to be critical consumers of information.
So what can we do? How do we protect ourselves, especially during something as important as an election when the stakes are so high?
Well, for starters, we need to be more discerning about our sources. Who's behind the information? What's their agenda?
It's like always check the receipts, right?
Exactly. And don't just stop at the headline. Actually, read the article, check the date, look for citations. And here's a good tip: practice lateral reading.
Lateral reading.
Yeah, it basically means opening up multiple tabs. If you see a claim, do a quick search and see what other reputable sources are saying about it. It's a simple way to get a more balanced perspective.
That's a great tip.
Mm.
It's so easy to get sucked into an echo chamber online, surrounded by information that just reinforces what you already think.
Totally. And remember, fact-checking websites are your friends. Sites like Snopes, PolitiFact, factcheck.org, they do the heavy lifting for you.
It's like having a team of digital detectives on your side.
Exactly. And lastly, be wary of sensational headlines or overly emotional language. They're often designed to grab your attention and bypass your critical thinking skills.
So basically, don't just read with your heart, use your head too. This has been a real eye-opener. It's scary how easy it is to be misled, especially in our hyper-connected world.
It is. But the good news is that by being aware of these tactics and knowing how to spot misinformation, we can all be part of the solution.
We can all be informed citizens, not just sharers of sensationalized, potentially false content. That's a great takeaway. All right, folks, until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and as always,
Happy deep diving.